Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry for this sound testing, but I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me and sharing this research and its process. Thank you, Stephanie, Gabriel, for the invitation to participate at Bienal. All the employees here, because it involves the work with institutions and employees. So I'd like to thank them because this project wouldn't be possible without your help. My name is Bruno Moreschi. I'm the coordinator of this project that I'm going to show you. It's called Bienal, which is the other 33rd Biennial, one of the Commission's projects at Bienal. It was born from the following logics. It goes beyond the official speech of this biennial or any other exhibition. There's always others and infinite understandings that are possible to understand them. Since June, during the assembling of the biennial until the end of this year, I'm interested in registering, creating, stimulating some of these alternative ways of understanding, emphasizing especially those that are not part of the official document archives. All this process was presented in a website that is in constant updating, and the website is ultra33.biennial.org.br. In this project, for it to happen, I coordinate a group of people that are amazing. Since the beginning of the project, they are not part of the employees of the institution. They are outside of the institution. They work as like third parties. And my presentation, I will follow my logic. I will introduce some of them and the actions that we've done. The first of them is Gabriel Pereira. He's a consultant researcher, and he's called by one of our AIs. We love the name. It's the accomplished scientist. I think that's what he is. He's a provocator. He lives in Boston. He's an MIT researcher, and what he does is something that's very important for this project. He tries to understand the 33rd Biennial from far away, never been here. So he's someone who has a comprehension of the system that we are trying to investigate without being here physically. And that's the issue of presence is very important in our project. My interest in the positive space as a member of this team, it happens in a way of getting closer and getting far. Whenever I come here to prospect something, I go, I get something, I get out and analyzes it. So that's the logic. Around 2 years ago, Gabriel and me, we decided to use a set of AIs as a decodified way of the art system in a critical process that sometimes will level the code, art code. And these AIs, they can offer us interpretations that are very valuable in the how artistic systems works, their practice and their power. And that's why I use so much AI as a criticism, as an institutional criticism. It's a tool that reveals some of this system. I will show some of the AIs that we are using here at the Biennial, and the images that they are interpreting are how we assembled the Biennial. The first image, this AI, it's called DenseCap. It reads the image as a network of surfaces with information. It's a process that tries to decode this pool of images. It's important to notice that this change of image interpretation, it happens regardless of the image being in movement or not. That's a steady image, and each frame the AI will process different results. So in these steady images, we like them because it's as if this AI is constantly saying that one image is always, it's always possible to understand in a different way. So let me show you this part. So Another thing that we've done, we increased the amount of intensity of AI into the system. So we forced the system to its limit. So, for example, here, right now, that's when we are almost using 100% of it. And we are seeing all possible responses that the AI has for that database. The other AI that we used is called Yellow at Facebook detection. And this, we focus the moment where they humanize a work of art, especially large sculptures and pictures. So it's reading it as a person, but on the other case, for instance, here, it starts reading these sculptures as people, just like the people who are assembling the exhibition. So you see everything as persons. So we catalog these moments. With this artificial intelligence, we also capture the moments where workers, during the assembly, they bodily expand or not. So we suggest that, for instance, when they are moving an object or the object passes through this person, they are read by one or more cuts, and so on and so forth. There's another interesting image in this process here. When we read people, when people are not there. So we have a small person here in the positive space. It's read as a person. Just to mention another AI that we use, we actually use 9. But one that really interests us is the open pose. We catalog the rare moments where this AI that is used by the Pentagon read bodies where there's no body. So when it's reading like ghosts, those are the biennial ghosts. So the elite of the São Paulo. We are calling this the Uncle Matarazzo. So we cataloged these ghosts, and we did an inventory of these people, these ghosts. Those are mistakes. For us, they are not mistakes. They are an expansion of meanings. So, following its logic, I'm going to introduce our team, Nina Bamberg. She is our restless producer. She's the one that makes our projects available, even the most absurd and abstract ideas. This project would be impossible with her regard and dedication. It was her who created a network of contacts with all partners that we had for this project, so that the mediator with this education department, they are important for us because they leave this exhibition in the day-to-day life, and they own the small stories that we can see in the exhibition. They are not part of the official catalog. During the exhibition period, the mediators, they are feeding our project with some of the audience reaction, and we are making it available in order to receive spontaneous information. And once we receive this story, with the help of the mediators, we can, for instance, register some very funny things. We have a morbid will of a teenager. So, was it filmed here? What about this tomb? I wanted to bury a boy here. So some crazy things that are really... this is another case.
This another visitor with this suggestion for public policy while the biennial is still closed. I think it's a wonderful idea. Also in other moments where Brazilian popular culture is associated to elite culture. Ones that say it looks like Gretchen. We also saw some from True Happiness from children. This is the case of a mediator that filmed these children here. Well, Nina also investigated and located some of the graffiti artists that did drawing that are non-authorized. They are Jotinha, furto, which means burglar, insane, and cinegraphist Glauner. Not only did they offer the recordings of what they did, but they also accepted to be interviewed by us to tell us what was this, how this process was that happened during Dawn. And I'm going to show you the video where they can tell you a little bit about the video. We were going by the arts pavilion and we thought, we're going to leave our art there as well. So we took a ladder. The sound is not coming to the booth. Only when the police car stopped, they already came armed. And then we said that we worked with art, with painting. That's what we said, that we worked with painting and art, and that we were bringing everything home. And then we started bringing down the ladder. And the police that was in the front saw that there was a movement with a car parking, and they came to see what was happening, because everything was done during the night, the dawn. And then we said, well, the best art that we're going to get up today is this. This is the best space we're going to get tonight to paint. After that, we went to a diner, got a Coke and a beer. We needed a ladder to go all the way up to the roof. But once we got up there on the roof, everything was easy. We went in with tons of cables, and we got the ladder up. I don't know, we were in doubt if we wanted to do it or not. I remember that it was really hard because the roof was very small and we didn't want to break it, and it was raining also. There was water accumulated. Then I fell on top of my hand, and my finger is still all screwed up until today. That's why we decided to put this, not him, because of the elections. It was a protest. So before dawn rose, we decided to leave and go to the park that was already opening and leave with the action, the park already working and everything was okay. We went by about twice to see. It was still a little bit out of focus. We saw that it wasn't too focused, but we left the ladder there. You left the ladder? Yeah, we left it. It was a gift to the biennial, you know? We might never be invited to go in, but the ladder was there as a gift from us. You slipped on your pen. Yeah. It's a tip. Don't leave your pen. I think somebody saw us. I don't know if they're going to erase it, but we got to where we needed to. If it didn't shock anyone, I think we did what we wanted. We wanted to shock. That was our intent. We wanted people to see what we had to say. And I think we reached our purpose, because if we hadn't, nobody would have erased. It wouldn't have bothered anyone. So we did what we had to. Well, continuing on, still about our team, I wanted to talk a little bit about Bernardo Fontes. He's our tech guy. He programmed and programs the most different actions with artificial intelligence, among other things, in our website. His work is very impressive. Working with him is impressive because even the most absurd propositions, he never says that's impossible. He was the one, for example, that trained our bot on Twitter, which is capable of doing two possible real-time interpretations. So our Twitter bot is capable of altering the pictures from Bienal that they get from the audience, as well as they altered the pictures from the team that I'm showing here, as well as the other pictures that I'm showing also from the audience here at the Biennial. Beyond this, our bot is capable to answer anyone with a text. Why? Because we train this artificial intelligence to learn how to answer, and we trained her with the cliches and phrases that we've identified in official catalogs from every biennial. This one and the previous ones. In the beginning of the project, our bot started as a baby with not a lot of verbal development. Now, after 2 months of daily learning, he answers much better than many curators I know. This interaction, and this is an interaction that I ran with him this week, and I asked him, would you like to say anything to you guys here? And him using the cliche from the catalog says the following. Renovation and contact with the imaginary of your public may create a distinction and change in the community. In all art, there is presence. In all art, there is presence. I think that's very beautiful. Well, lastly, to wrap up our team, I'd like to present you Guilherme Falcão, our designer. Not only did he create our website's visual identity in the most accessible way possible, always keeping in mind a type of network, a directory of actions, but he also knew how to transform this content into other formats. Since the beginning of the project, I explained to Falcão that, to me, the most essential part of the project is not a specific action that's in this list or the website, nor the video. There is a video in the pre-Bienal space where you keep your things, but this is not the main part for me. As I mentioned in the interview, which is in the catalog with Laura, I said, an image guides me since the beginning of the project. In the future, someone arrives at Bienal to study the 33rd edition, and they will find the official archive, but they will also find another set of documents that are fruit of our actions. I'd like to think that this would be an invitation to this researcher. Look, you can also include in your research this experimental mode of building the past, giving it more meaning, not contenting yourself with yesterday the way it's always been expected. So for this special part of this project is to deliver this material, this archival material, to the biennial. We have been already talking to staff, hackers, and programmers, because our challenge here is to transform this material into languages and codes which are capable of surviving obsolescence of technological formats. Well, 4 questions guide the project, questions which are on purpose broad. What is presence today? What do the non-specialists have to say? What reverberates beyond the building? And what's going to stay? The questioning on the idea of presence involves many different ideas. How are the visitors at Bienal invited to record their paths through the expositions and send it to artificial intelligence? This is one of the cases. And artificial intelligence is going to try to read what it is it imagines is there. Monte de maçãs numa pilha. And we had many different paths. Monte de bananas verdes e amarelas penduradas numa árvore. Trying to stimulate a new description of these actions. Another action that involves the path of the visitors in the biennial is also run by researchers Rosana Celeste Nicolau Santola, Alison Mazzoni. They study ways of creating sound and visualization paths by the public through the exposition. So they go in with their cell phone and tracking their GPS, we can see what they're doing. And then through a database of sound, they're creating some compositions of their paths through the exposition. Still on this issue of presence, we're running an action that is scanning experimental 3D actions of parts of the biennial. They may be true pieces of art or not, but they are being interpreted by random people in Boston and Japan. I am going after this talk to Boston to talk to these Brazilians that lived in Brazil at some point and somehow visited the Bienal in other editions, or at least came to the park. We are very interested in understanding how it is that the registries from the exposition can intermediate their relationship from Brazilians abroad and their memories of this park. Well, the other question, which is, what do the non-specialists have to say? We count on two different types of interpretations. One of them, and I should confess is one of our favorite actions, if not the favorite, is the building of a network of dialogues with the staff from the Bienal. My thoughts are that for the supposed neutrality of this space can be met in the exposition, we need, first of all, to mask the staff that work in the assembly and maintenance of the space so that they can seem an exclusive fruit of the creative work of the artists. So the security, the painters, the monitors, and other professionals usually do not have space within this space. So they are a type of alienated and strange work. To contrast this work, which is so expensive to the work, 5 tracks from the audio book were reserved for our work and showed the comments of some of these professionals mentioning some of the pieces they could choose. In this action, for example, we registered how a specific element of a small art piece can stimulate childhood memories from Rosângela Silveira Geronimo, who helps in cleaning, and commented one of Vânia Mironi's art pieces in the 3rd floor. When I saw this, I went back to my childhood. When I lived in the slums, I'm not ashamed of saying, we didn't have water, we didn't have food. We would have to go to the wells, and we would go there. We'd go down the hill on the dirty sidewalks. And every day, early in the morning, me and my brothers would go. And I got this memory from my mother. Her knelt. You know, we were kids. Well, the complete audio you can hear on the website. We also registered Iraildo Brito, who is better known as Batoré, and he operates forklifts at the Bienal, and he decided to comment on Nelson Felix's art piece, which he was responsible for putting together. In his audio, he thinks it's very important to say that a Bienal wouldn't be possible without people like him. Here I've carried all types of things. When there was 150 years of biennial, there was a piece that I had to lift. I had to bring it all the way up to the 3rd floor. Imagine we having to work all of this. We had to put it all together. We had 2 weeks to do it. You stop in front of the piece and think, such an enormous piece of metal, this size, what does it mean? And then you start putting the cactus, the parts together, and you start going into the artist's mind. You never know what he thinks, because the other guy that works with him says these are really the people that are within his mind and understand the artist. So they understand, but they have very good assistants, Sérgio, Vinicio, and the boys that work with him too. These are the people you don't see, but they make the art piece that you see. So I think we should be congratulated. He should also, because he did what he wanted to. For this action, we also heard Rita Maria, who is manager of the General Secretary of the Bienal, and also the monitor's guide, and Danilo Macedo. If you want to hear all the audios, you can go to the project's website. Other voices, non-specialized voices that we considered in the project were the voices from artificial intelligence, largely because they're trained by people that are not necessarily familiarized with art. With them, among many other things, we interpreted the official pictures of all the biennial's editions produced up until today. So we took all the images that are available at the website since the 1st till the 32nd biennial, and we give it to these series of artificial intelligence to analyze it. The idea was to analyze how the interpretation of the past changes is interpreted when it is submerged to interpretation of signs. It's common for them to see, for example, computers and cell phones at times where this did not exist. In the website, we also put all the raw data. So if you want to have a different look at this material, everything is there, totally available. In the website, we also created some cards with some of the interpretations. The first one, I show this picture from 1951, Max Bill's art piece, the first edition of the biennial. I'm going to put the artificial intelligence voice speaking. Em cima, em azul, mecanismo 60%, luz 57%, texto 10%, cozinha, torta, produtos, utensílios, forno, micro-ondas, conteúdo, talvez drogas 1%. Well, among all the patterns identified and all the images that were analyzed, also analyzed by us, I'd like to highlight some patterns. First, images with females or abstract art pieces tend to bring up the level of sexuality of AIs. So there's a picture of a woman. The index or the rate of provocation goes up. Here, the result is in English here also if you want to look. Another thing we noticed that large part of the elements in the expositive space are read as consuming materials that are easily found in department stores. So for example, here they say 90% sure that it's a shopping center. So it says businesses, 84%, department stores, 74%, something connected to buying, 62%. Here, too, they think that this could be a bazaar. It could be Christmas. It could be a party, gum, sweets, candy in general. Beyond this, some of the AIs that we showed, that we use, especially IBMs, have enormous obsession for ties, maybe because they consider that men with ties are something that have to be seriously considered. So it's very common, sometimes in an image, sometimes only the tie is read, especially by IBM's AI. Apart from this, at any point, you can see cats that are not cats, which suggests, or dogs that are not dogs, which suggests an enormous amount of little cats and dogs super cute in this data bank. It's also a tendency from the biannual, as I mentioned before, and these artificial intelligences are also very interested in trying to identify celebrities. So Charles Chaplin has been in Bienal many times. Ronald Reagan, this is Ronald Reagan here, okay? According to AI. Sean Connery is very common as well. He always comes to the biennial, which shows that this data bank are very modulated according to entertaining and cultural consumption images. We are also running the same idea of interpreting these images with amateur images that the audience of the 33rd Biennial sends to our website. So, for example, this is a picture from a visitor. This is the sculpture of how people. Here, a picture from Dunga, which is read as a donut. Okay? And so on. Now, about the other question, what reverberates outside the building? One of the actions of this question is called coup, and it is an enormous effort to show the political protests that happened, trying to keep this biennial to not be separated from the political protests that happened. For example, the Lulaço that happened included in the opening of the exposition, as well as this very small Lula Livre that is here, that was already removed, which was put during the installation of the mushrooms of Antônio Molassi Moreno, which is right in the beginning. This was on the first day. We were able to get a picture of it. So we don't want the political protest to be separated from this exposition specifically because of the coup. I would like to invite all of you to visit our website very slowly and calmly to get to know this other biennial. And because I am producing here a formal discourse, I'd like to present some actions that work within this logic. So to reconstruct the many different official speeches produced by the biennial and about the biennial. These actions are part of the last question in the project, which is called What Will Stay? Well, so first to analyze what's published in the press about the biennial, we invited the researcher Letícia Cobra Lima to create experimental texts, almost didactic poems from the titles of the press releases of the biennial published here and around the world. And how is it that the idea about art is being reduced in what we call journalistic reports? In the website, you can find the PDF with all these poems written by Letícia, but I also asked her to record so that we can hear her voice and we can understand how this works. The booth cannot hear very well. The curatorship work is reduced. Different spaces can collide. The curator used to be the super powerful. I don't favor anyone if I bring an American, famous American. It seems that the Spanish that has been in before the biennial seems to be presenting a very subtle exposition for the bang bang world that we're living now, but with expressive meaning. I'm going to have to open a new window because this other part works in a different way. Still with regards to the construction of the official discourses of the biennial. The main text from Gabriel Pérez Barreiro, which he wrote for the registry book, was reformulated by us. Instead of his words, we substitute them with their visual correspondence, most common found in the data bank of Google. I'm going to put a snippet here so that we can try this other way of reading his text read by a computer voice.
In his 1809 novel, Elective Affinities, Goethe tells a story of an aristocratic couple whose idyllic life is disturbed by the appearance of two new characters into their relationship, the wife's foster daughter, and the husband's childhood friend. As is often the case in such stories, new relationships are forged beyond the social conventions of the time. So far, so typical. However, when the four protagonists are sitting in their well-equipped library enjoying an evening of music making and reading, one of them takes a scientific treatise from the shelf and reads aloud about the reaction of certain compounds and molecules, and how some will attract and some will repel, like oil and water. Goethe seems to be inviting us to draw a parallel between the elective affinities of the natural world, and the conflictive emotional and spiritual lives of the characters in the novel. If our tastes and affinities are governed by laws we do not fully understand, we are potentially faced with an organizing system that is not primarily moral, or cultural, or biological, but some strange amalgam of all three.
That was just a snippet, but you can find the full text on the website. Lastly, to finish, I'd like to show something else, which is, it's not just Gabriel's text which is being rewritten by us. Large part of the official texts, including the educational texts and the releases in the communication sector, have been rewritten from a different set of techniques called art school spinning, which suggests changes in texts. This is very common in fake news. It was very much used in Trump's campaign in the United States. It doesn't exactly create fake news, but it takes a text, which is in this case is fake, and then creates many different versions of this text from synonyms. So one false piece published from this unfolds into 100 different versions in different websites so that may actually become real news. So from these new texts that were recreated, we also put it in the website in PDF. But as we started using this technology, this way of rewriting, we started creating a dictionary of expressions, because many of art expressions within these texts, we started seeing then some common standards that artificial intelligence, this article spinning technique, of transforming these basic concepts. So I would like to finish with these concepts, which are these new ways of reading. Why? Because I believe that these definitions here reveal the process of denaturalization of art, the concepts and ideas that we're trying to put into the concept of the other 33rd biennial. So art for us is, for example, reaction to manufacturing. An artist is always a specialist. Curatorial concept is a controlling way. The curator is also a carer, a controller, a guardian, a selector of different points of view. An exposition is always 90% of times read as bureaucracy, then later as entrepreneurship, a spectacle, exhibition of values, and introduction. Cultural manifestations are always read as social appearances, and the art market is always read as labor publicity. So that's it. I wanted to finish with these expressions, these new terms, which I think make sense in this process of denaturalization of the project. The project is still undergoing, and you can see more of it in the website. That's it. Thank you very much.